Hello again, William. I'd like to outdoors, and I'd like to today for Burn Friday Burn talk a little bit about uh, command number 15 of the commands of Christ. Something that every Christian, I'm going to say something that every Christian should do. Judge not. We are so quick to judge, and all through God's Word, He tells us not to. And then in the Gospel, when Jesus was teaching the people, reminding them who they're supposed to be, and He also reminded them that of the commands that God had given beforehand. So, we're going to go to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7. We're going to be starting at the beginning of the chapter, verse number 1 through verse 3. And Jesus says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is a standard by which you will be judged." And why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? Ain't that something? So, while we think about that for a minute, I'm going to get up as I usually do, and I'm going to step over there to the burn spot and get the burn going for this Burn Friday burn. I'll be right back. Alright, let's see if we can judge this burn. Alright, now that the burn is going, Let's get back into this passage and this command. Uh, Command number 15, judge not. Once again, Matthew chapter 7, beginning with verse number 1. And I'm going to read through verse number 5. Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. Verse 3. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. What do you think he's saying there? You think that once we get rid of the same things that we're trying to judge another person by, then we can help them with the situation they're in, instead of being judgmental because of their situation? That's, like I said, this is something that every Christian should do, but for the most part don't. We're not supposed to be critical of others. The Apostle Paul in Romans, he at the end of chapter 1 and beginning of chapter 2, you've heard this saying that mostly kids will say it takes one to know one. Well, it's true. It is biblical. Let's go there. A lot of us don't like that. We can say, well, let's just see what God's got to say about that. Because we, for the most part, people want to use their own ideas when it comes to their lives. They want to be in control. They don't want to hear what God's got to say about it. Paul was talking about people that God had abandoned because of the way they were living their lives. And at the end of chapter 1, starting with verse number 31, Romans 1:31, they refuse to understand, break their promises, are heartless, and have no mercy. They know God's justice requires that those who do these things deserve to die, yet they do them anyway. Worse yet, they encourage others to do them too. You may think you can condemn such people, but you are just as bad. And you have no excuse. When you say they are wicked and should be punished, you are condemning yourself, for you who judge others do these very same things. What? He said it takes one to know one, didn't he? And that's exactly what Jesus said. He said, you by the measure that you judge someone, that's the standard by which you will be judged as well. When we judge, we generally take things out of context and judge prematurely, not knowing everything there is to know about a situation or about a person's situation before we try to bring judgment on them. And another thing that Jesus said, let's go to the book of John, chapter 7 this time. John 7, verse 24. Jesus says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." Righteous judgment is knowing all, because that's what makes God righteous. He knows everything. So if we know everything about a situation, then we can judge correctly. We have to look beneath the surface to find everything, because some things are hidden. And another practically familiar passage about judging is in Proverbs chapter 18, verse number 13. "He that answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him." Because see, before you hear the full matter, you bring judgment on somebody in your mind or to other people. That's why God desires you not to gossip, because that's what gossip is. It's lies. And if it's not lies, you really shouldn't be talking about the person anyway, unless they are there to answer for themselves. The chief priests and the Pharisees of Jesus' day, they were always trying to judge him. And they more or less wanted to kick Nicodemus out because he called it to their attention one time in the book of John, chapter 7. In verse number 51, Nicodemus said, "Does our law judge any man before it hears him and know what he done?" See, if we want to be judged wrongly, then we can go ahead and wrongly judge others. Because Jesus is the one that said, by the standard we set in judgment, that's the standard that's set for us as well. Our words have power, whether you want to believe that or not. Your words have power, because that's biblical. It's the only reason I say it. It's the power of life and death is in the tongue. There's a lot of passages in the Bible about judging others. I guess it's because there was a lot of that going on, and just like there is today, there's a lot of it going on. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 31 and 32, the Apostle Paul had something to say because of the way the church in Corinth was backbiting and taking each other to court, slandering one another. But he wrote the letters to the churches to get them straightened up on their wrong dealings. Chapter 11, 1 Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 31 and 32. "If we would judge ourselves, we should not be judged. But when we are judged, we are chastened of the Lord, that we should not be condemned with the world." See, we're not supposed to be like the world, judging prematurely and wrongly. Uh, we're supposed to be separate from them, especially in our attitudes and our actions. In the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul, he he was coming into judgment continuously by the people who were in authority, the places where he would go to preach the gospel. And like I say, he was continuously coming in under judgment. So he wanted to make sure that the people he was teaching didn't act that way toward those people in the church. And he exhorts us not to be like that as well. In Galatians chapter 6, verse 1, he said, Brethren, if a man be overtaken of fault, you which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. But see, the things that we want to, if we don't take into consideration our own weakness, we're going to judge someone and end up being in that same situation ourselves. The one of the writers in Proverbs, I think I've read where a few different proverbs were written. Not all of them were written by Solomon, but most were. Proverbs 26:27. Whoever digs a pit shall fall in it himself. Who rolls a stone, it will return upon him. Try rolling something on someone where it doesn't belong. It's going to come back on you. In the book of Esther, we see something about that as well. Haman, I guess he was the king's sheriff. He was one of the advisors, I guess. He was trying to get the king's judgments against the Jews, and ended up with the punishment he was intending for others. That punishment was brought upon himself. He went ahead and prematurely built a gallows to hang Mordecai on, and that was the very gallows that him and his sons were hanged on. So if you don't want to take what I'm saying, read the scriptures for yourself, and you need to anyway. You don't want to, no matter who it is. I don't care who's teaching you, who you're listening to. Seek for yourself the wisdom of God out of His Word, because that's where they should be getting the teaching that they're passing on. And you need to make sure that it's right. And if it's not, perhaps you need to be listening to someone else. Just saying. I don't want to mislead anybody. That's why I'm always saying, read the scriptures for yourself. I have to check on people as well. When I hear somebody say something, well, that just doesn't sound right, because I don't remember reading that. And a lot of time I have listened to a few videos, a few sermons that went out over the airwaves, false information in them. So I've gotten to where I check something out before I recommend it to someone else, and I check something before I pass it on myself. Uh, Everything that I'm telling you, I get out of I get out of this right here. I don't trust my own judgment because I know how human I can be sometimes. Romans chapter 14 verse 13, and I'm just about done. Let us not judge therefore one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. What would it do to your attitude if someone falsely accused you and convinced others that you know that they were right? That's the stumbling block Paul was talking about. Don't put something out there like that that's not true. Even if it is, don't put it out there. It's not your place to judge others and to convince people that know them that they are someone they're not, or that they have done something that they haven't. So, Jesus said, in Matthew chapter 7, verse number 1, judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. So remember that when you're thinking about judging someone, even if it's in your own mind and you don't speak it out, you need to check your thoughts, like the Apostle Paul said. Take them captive and cast them down. Those kind of thoughts are from the evil one. Join me again for next week's. Last week I didn't tell you what this week's was going to be. I said it's going to be a surprise because I knew that some of you might not have watched if you'd have known that I was going to be talking about judging others. Next week, command number 16, don't cast pearls. You've heard that passage, casting your pearls before the swine. Well, to the Jews, swine was unclean. So don't cast that which is precious into the realm of the unclean. Join me again next week, and we'll talk a little bit about casting our pearls. May the Lord bless you and keep you in all your ways, and join me then.